welcome to the podcast today. My name is Christine, and I'm your host. And I am coming to you with a new baby laying on my chest. So if you hear some noises, hopefully she stays asleep during this. If not, I guess I'll have to pause and regroup. So today we're going to be talking about supplements for picky eaters. And parents do ask me all the time, should my picky eater be on a supplement? And you want to make sure your kids are getting the right nutrients because picky eaters are usually missing a lot of nutrients, right? But I'm sure you've also heard this, but supplements can be a waste of money or just full of junk, right? So which is it? Do they need them? Are they helpful? Are they not helpful? Are they actually harmful? What's the deal with them? Okay, so today we're going to cut through some of that noise. I'll share the pros, the cons, and how to tell whether a supplement makes sense for your child, right? What to look for on the label, things like that. So you're not wasting money or, or worse, right? Not that supplements in and of itself are dangerous, but sometimes they contain ingredients that might not really be good for the body, right? So in an effort to make things better, sometimes we get some stuff in there that maybe isn't ideal. Okay, so before we dive in, let's talk about why supplements are even like a hot topic for parents, right? So number one is picky eating creates nutrient gaps. Two, supplements are just everywhere. You're constantly being bombarded with ads and different influencers talking about supplements that they're promoting, right? And three, they do give us a little bit of that control back of, oh my gosh, they haven't eaten anything healthy. I could at least get something healthy in them via the supplement, right? So let's break that down a little bit before we go into the pros. Okay, so nutrient gaps. Kids that are eating less than 20 foods, or sometimes they're even skipping entire food categories like proteins and vegetables, it is going to be natural to worry about their growth, their energy levels, their immunity, their focus, their mood, behavior, right? Those things are all influenced by nutrients. And research shows that many picky eaters are actually low in some essential vitamins and minerals like iron, zinc, vitamin D. So supplements can feel like a safety net to many parents. And right, they are everywhere. From, Instagram feeds to Target store shelves, gummies are, they're marketed more like a candy sometimes. They're colorful, they're fun. And sometimes kids are eating things like candy. So it feels like an easy next step. Right. And we talked a little bit about that sense of control, right? When mealtimes are chaotic and they're not getting in those nutrients, supplements seem like one thing that you can actually control, right? If they refuse broccoli, at least a chewable vitamin can feel a little bit like you're getting your bases covered. But not all supplements are created equal. Okay, so some do really fill gaps and are extremely powerful and helpful. Others are just glorified candy, right? So let's unpack the difference. So first, the pros. They can bridge gaps temporarily. We don't want them to be the only thing that's keeping our kids going. And that's for a few reasons, right? One main one being that the body doesn't absorb nutrients quite as well from supplements as it does from the actual foods themselves. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But they can bridge some gaps, right? So kids with limited diets, a really good high quality supplement targeted to their, nutritional deficits can act a little bit like a safety net while you're building food variety. Notice I said while you're building food variety. So it's not meant to be like that they're on it forever. It's until they're getting more. They help during certain seasons, right? So growth spurts, illness recovery, cold and flu season, they might warrant some short-term support, right? And, some nutrients themselves do sort of require supplementation if you're low on them, like iron, vitamin D, omega-3 deficiencies. They're really common. And in these cases, supplements can be game changing. And we are testament to that. We are living, breathing proof. I used to be the supplement queen for sure. Believing like each one was fixing something or filling a gap. I don't do that anymore. I'll share why in a minute. But I've really seen some supplements transform kids' lives, right? When my son was younger, we tried a blend called Speak Smooth and with phosphatidylcholine. Within a week, his speech really exploded. He had 30 new words in a month. Finally said mama after, I'm talking like he had at least 5 sessions of therapy a week between OT, speech, special instruction. For months, he had one-to-one speech. He lived with a speech therapist, right? Myself. And he was not only not talking, but he was really showing some concerning signs. And the omega-3s in the Speak Smooth, which is like a high dose of fish oil, really skyrocketed his progress, right? So the right supplement can unlock what food alone can't yet, at least, right? But he definitely wasn't eating foods that contained a lot of omega-3s. So I would assume he was lacking in that, right? So supplements can give the body tools to function, right, while you're building this variety. But let's talk a little bit about the cons. All right, so cons of supplements could be junk ingredients, poor absorption, giving you a false sense of security, and the wrong forms of it can actually maybe cause some issues. So let's get into these, okay? Junk ingredients. So many kids' vitamins are candy in disguise. They're filled with artificial dyes, sugar alcohols, hydrogenated oils, and citric acid, which I have heard can be grown in black mold. Gross, right? These can irritate the gut, which would kind of be counteracting the benefits of what you're trying to do, right? So checking those ingredients, making sure that it's not containing anything, gross or unsavory. 2, poor absorption. Nutrients from supplements, like I said earlier, they don't always mimic food's natural synergy. So, vitamin C in whole foods comes with bioflavonoids that enhances absorption. Gummies don't usually contain those. So that 50% of daily value can give you a false reassurance because not all of that is being absorbed properly by your digestive system. So getting it from the food itself is still number one goal, right? All right, number 3, a false sense of security. Relying too much on supplements can stall food progress, right? Because just giving a pill or a gummy does not teach kids about tasting, chewing, or enjoying meal times, right? We don't want you to say, all right, just forget about it tonight. We're just going to have the gummy, right? And we don't want you to do that every single night. We want you to continue to use the strategies to make the progress, take the baby steps, right? That's really important. So, we don't want parents thinking, okay, well, they're using the supplement, so they're fine for now. We're not going to worry about this. We're not going to address it. We're not going to work towards eating better foods because we've got it covered with the supplements. We really want to be working on expanding the diet through the strategies at the same time. It's not like the alternative, right? So, number 4, the wrong forms can cause problems. And for this one, I'm really very specifically going to be talking about folic acid, which is very commonly used, but it's a synthetic form of folate, right? So when this becomes an issue is if your child has an MTHFR gene mutation. Ooh, sorry, excuse me. New mom. Sorry. Not new mom, old mom, just new mom again. Okay, so So folic acid, right? So for example, I have the MTHFR gene mutation. And so I really shouldn't have any supplements or anything that or any foods that contain folic acid. It's the synthetic form of folate, which means my body can't absorb it, right? So I actually need the natural form, which is methylfolate, right? So folic acid would build up in my system and I wouldn't really be able to get it out. So that's what I mean about the wrong forms can cause problems. And there are still, doctors, like I had a doctor tell me, oh yeah, I see you have this MTHFR gene mutation. Just make sure you take a lot of extra folic acid. And I was like, that is the opposite of what I should be doing. I'd be better off not taking anything than taking folic acid. So it's definitely not widely understood, I would say, or you really have to be your own advocate, as I always say, do your own research, but making sure you're getting the right form, right? So especially because this gene mutation affects so many people, and how it absorbs B vitamins in your body, it's always better to not take the synthetic form and to always have methylfolate or from natural sources of food, right? Okay, so this brings us into what to look for. Okay, so, I want you to read the label like a detective, check for third-party testing, look for whole food-based formulas, and make sure it's tailored to your child. So we'll dive into all 4 of these points. Number 1, so read the label like a detective. We always want you to read labels of all the food, but if it reads like a candy wrapper, if there's things you can't really pronounce in there, dyes, preservatives, citric acid, I would skip it. Okay. Number 2, check for third-party testing. So certifications like NSF certified or USP verified ensure a little bit better quality and purity. But the best thing to do is even contact the actual companies themselves. But if you're not sure what to ask for, looking for some of those third-party labels might be a little bit of an extra layer of security for you. Also, of course, hopefully you're working with a nutritionist or a detox specialist or provider of some sort that has that knowledge and can vet those products on your behalf. So you don't have to spend time doing that. And the people that we work with always do that. So that whatever supplements they're recommending, they have been vetted for these types of things, and making sure that, well, one of the things that just came up is tailoring it to your child, right? That's why we recommend the gut testing. We recommend making sure that whatever supplements you're taking are right for your body or your child's body. Everyone is unique. So I can't just say these are the supplements we give picky eaters. You need to understand what the diet is, what might be missing first. And, does your body have trouble absorbing B vitamins, right? Those types of little details would affect which supplements would be best for your body. So it's easy to see an ad online and think, oh my gosh, this might help solve this problem. But that is not always the case. In our case, it really did help with my son's speech, because that was really an area that helped that decrease that inflammation in his brain. Omegas really can do that for you, which is wonderful, which is why I think a lot of people have success with that brand or whatever, or that type of supplement for that issue of speech. But, could there have been even a better supplement if I knew what I knew now that would have been more perfect? Probably. But this is what I mean. It's important to do it right the first time. Get the testing, know what's perfect for your child, and go based on that instead of what the ad said, right? Also, the other piece was preferring to look for any supplements that are based on whole foods. So they're actually sourced, the ingredients in the supplements themselves are sourced directly from fruits and vegetables and herbs. They are going to be more gentler on your system, and your body will do a much better job absorbing them because they have more bioavailability. And buy from reputable sources. Please, please, please. Avoid third-party sellers on Amazon. Supplements are among the most counterfeited products out there. Purchase directly from the manufacturer or a trusted distributor to ensure safety. And I just want to go over what my approach is. I try to do a balanced approach. My philosophy is food first, supplements as a backup. Like I said, they can bridge the gap, but they should never really replace real nutrition, textures, and experiences. In my program, we address the 4 pillars of feeding success, which is gut health, medical type things, sensory processing, oral motor skills, and of course, mindset, one of the most important things. So when you are supporting all 4 pillars, supplements can become optional tools. We don't want them to become crutches ever. Sometimes the pros are going to outweigh the cons, right? My son's fish oil blend had flavor additives I would normally avoid, but the speech breakthrough was absolutely worth it. And that's the heart of it. You want to make informed choices, intentional choices, and, tailored to your specific child and circumstance as much as humanly possible. If you're wondering whether your child needs a supplement, it's often a sign that food progress might be stalling out or you're stuck somewhere. So if you haven't already, take the Picky Eaters quiz at thepickeaterstest.com. Find out whether your child is fearful, stuck, or curious, and get your next steps for building variety without relying on supplements forever, right? So just to recap, supplements can feel like safety nets because picky eating can be so extreme for some kids. Marketing's really great, and we worry as parents, and that combination can make them super appealing. And they can bridge nutrient gaps. They can support growth and recovery and address real deficiencies. But beware of things like junk ingredients or absorption, false sense of security, and synthetic forms of certain vitamins made in a lab. Be smart. Read the labels, look for third-party testing, avoid fillers, and choose whole food-based options. Buying direct if you can, and more importantly, buying based on your child's actual needs, which you can determine through things like blood and stool testing, okay? It is possible to determine what they are lacking and what it would be beneficial for them. So food first, supplements second. Supplements can be used to support progress, but hopefully never replacing it. And I know that you're going to be the parent that asks questions, reads labels, and makes empowered choices because you're listening to this right now. So if you've made it this far, you're going to be that parent that is going to make that best, most informed, most intuitive decision for your child. And I think that's wonderful. That's really all we can do is we try to make the best decision with the information that we have at hand, right? So, there's so much out there, and I think what every piece of information that you get gives you some sort of, almost like a puzzle piece or a clue, and it'll lead you to a place where hopefully you're able to get your child to that next step or that next place. That's what happened for me, and I'm so grateful that I got that information about the supplements. Because, just as an aside, as a speech pathologist, in our schooling, we were never taught anything about nutrition deficiencies or supplements that could be helpful for speech development. That was not part of our training. But what I've learned, so much of speech is really coming from our nutrition and what we're eating. So when I see kids, really struggling to speak, I always look at what they're eating because, even things like when older kids who maybe they're speaking, but their focus is off, the food we're eating is our fuel. So if you're putting the wrong fuel in your body, if you're not putting enough fuel in your body, I mean, of course that's going to it's going to offset your performance a little bit, right? It makes logical sense, and it's just how literally our biology works, right? You need certain nutrients and minerals for all of your cells and bodily functions to continue working optimally. They could only do it without for so long before you're going to start seeing the signs, seeing the symptoms, right? So whether it's now or sometime down the road, you're going to have to address it in one way or the other. And I like to be proactive and, do things a natural way before you have to have the need for medications and things to come in, because we know that loves to be thrown around as an option, for things like ADHD and, autoimmune diseases. And, but if we can change that course, of history before that happens for our kids, I mean, why wouldn't we, right? All right. Well, this little one is about to wake up. So I hope that this episode was really helpful, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.